And so good morning and welcome to this Jersey Chamber of Commerce hustings that is taking place online so that we can get the thoughts of those of the candidates for the constituency of St John, St Lawrence and Trinity. You'll see on your screens that we're joined by Mary Venturini, standing as an independent candidate, Andy Howell, standing as an independent, Hilary Jeune, also as an independent, Gregory Guida, representing the Jersey Alliance Party. There are three candidates for Jersey Alliance in this constituency, John Lafondre and Hugh Raymond, also both with Jersey Alliance, and as with the chamber hustings that we've had online, just one representative from each party in each constituency, and Kirsten Morell standing as an independent as well. Those are our candidates. We'll get into some discussion in just a moment's time. Before we do all of that, let's have a quick 2-minute round robin from each of our candidates to find out what they have to say about themselves and their manifesto. Gregory, the screen is all yours. I was going to say the floor, but I think the screen is possibly better. It's your 2 minutes.
Good morning. First, I'd like to apologize for John and you, who are both at a different meeting. Everybody's competing for our attention. As far as I'm concerned, over this term, I actively participated in 2 ministries and 20 different panels and boards. And I'm actually extremely proud of having been able to serve the island at that level. It has been a time of hard work, and I hope I've brought a positive influence in many aspects of Jersey life. Some know that I also spent the last year defending Jersey against the country of my birth, and I'm not sure they'll ever give me a passport again. This government initiated dozens of generational undertakings, such as Port of Community Facilities Program, the refinancing of the state's pension, the new government offices, and the long overdue refurbishment of Fort Regent. We did it while assuming the additional workload of the island plan, the climate emergency, OneGov, and our hospital. We also launched the largest housing building campaign of Jersey's history. All this during the 2 worst crises of the post-war era, Brexit and COVID. I actually believe that we did well considering the circumstances, but we all know that so much remains to be done. I'm asking you to please give me the opportunity to continue this thankless but absolutely necessary project for another term. You know I will not fail you.
See, I knew I'd forget to unmute myself. Thank you very much indeed, Gregory. That's the shortest 2 minutes we've had, only a minute and a half, but thank you very much indeed for being economical. Mary, it's your turn next, so we'll just press the reset and start for your 2 minutes of you and your manifesto.
Thank you, Mary. I am one of the new independent candidates standing in Trinity, St John and St Lawrence, District 3. My roots go back in St John's to the arrival of my grandmother in the 1920s, so effectively I've been here quite a long time. But I came back to live in St John's about 20 years ago. Before that, I established and ran the largest English language publishing company in Rome, when I lived there with my husband, bringing up a young family. I know about doing business in a very competitive and difficult environment. Here are some of the urgent problems that I see in Jersey. The first of which is the healthcare system, the whole of the healthcare system, and not just about the hospital, with its eye-watering budget of £800 million and over. And I wonder why some of this money isn't earmarked for the rest of the healthcare system, for the patients, the nurses, and the doctors, who are all suffering hardship and stress. I would also like to stress that this budget of over £804 million is 2 years old already, and we know what is happening to prices. We are therefore talking about a completely unrealistic budget. But let's move on to housing, which is another of the crises facing our island, and it's affecting recruitment of staff in all sectors: healthcare, teaching, hospitality, retail, farming, and even finance. The lack of accommodation is hitting the young with families worst of all, and we urgently need information about the housing crisis, its facts and figures. We want to know how many properties are empty and for how long. We need to know how many are bought just for speculation by people who live outside the island. Without these figures, we cannot move forward.
There we go, Mary. Thank you very much. I thought I'd let you finish at least your sentence. That would
Thank you.
unkind not to do that at least. Thank you very much indeed to Mary. Elaine, welcome. Nice to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We'll come to you very shortly with a 2-minute round that we're doing at the moment, and we'll get into discussion after that. That completes our lineup for today. Andy, it's over to you next for your 2 minutes.
Thank you, Murray. Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Howell, and I'm standing as an independent candidate for deputy for the new District 3, and I would really appreciate your vote on the 22nd of June. I feel very fortunate to have lived in Jersey for the last 40 years. I regard Jersey as my home. We've brought up our family here. I really care about the island and all aspects of its life: people, environment, traditions. I'm standing for election because I think we need a fresh start. We need new states members, and I would love to be one of them. I want to be part of a states assembly that listens to islanders and is open, transparent, and accountable. I will work collaboratively and with integrity to make sensible and financially sound decisions, ensuring that we do not waste taxpayers' money and that we live within our means. I too want to address the cost of housing. As a retired dentist and wife of a GP, I am passionate about making positive change within our healthcare system, reducing bureaucracy. Our future hospital needs to be properly future-proofed and provide all the services and facilities that we need. Current plans need to be revisited. Sadly, morale at the moment is very low, and I want this to change. Our wonderful frontline staff need to be cherished and empowered to do their jobs. Excellent patient care coupled with kindness and compassion has to be our #1 priority. I believe everyone matters. I'm approachable, hardworking, and will value your input. Together we can put islanders at the heart of decision making. But the only way I can make a difference is if I get elected on June the 22nd. So if you live in St John, St Lawrence or Trinity, please vote for me, Andy Howell. I would love to be your deputy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy, very much to time. It's our round robin of all of the candidates that we have before us today. And next up is Kirsten Morell. Kirsten, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Murray. I'm Kirsten Morell, and for the past 4 years, I've been a deputy in the States representing St Lawrence. During that time, I have focused very strongly on the economy, both as the chair of the Economic Affairs and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel, and as Assistant Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, where I focused on particularly developing and diversifying the economy through culture, arts and heritage, and also farming and marine economies. Diversification of the economy is, for me, a massively important element of the work that we're trying to do in the economy department. If you look at Jersey's economy over the last 20 years, it hasn't come close to diversifying, becoming sufficiently diversified. I have to say, one of the only people in the States who speaks out on behalf of businesses in Jersey. Having been a small business owner, being married to a small business owner, I understand the stresses and the strains of running a small business. For me, I want to see government as an enabler of the economy. We have an enterprising spirit in Jersey, but we are in danger of losing our enterprise, that spirit of enterprise. Government can enable in many ways. It's purchasing power. I brought a proposition called Putting Jersey Businesses First to force the government to spend more money through the local economy rather than buying in goods and services from outside. It can also use its own property to provide low rent as a place for startups as an incubator for startups so they can flourish there. And it can also reduce bureaucracy. When I was in scrutiny, I also worked on the gender pay gap review panel, because for me, an inclusive economy, particularly a gender inclusive economy, is vital. If we want young people to stay in Jersey, then we also need a diverse economy which provides them with careers. I believe we should be educating youngsters about enterprise so that they can then move forward. Sorry, Murray's hand went up, which put me off slightly. I do apologise. But an enterprising economy where education supports young people to learn how they can push themselves forward in an interesting manner through the economy.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry for putting you
about that.
No, it's all right, but thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. So we're doing our round robin. We'll go to Hilary first, and then we'll come to Elaine in just a second. Hilary, your 2 minutes starts anytime you want.
Thank you, Murray. Good morning, everybody. So I'm standing as an independent candidate, but I've been working for the last 20 years influencing international organizations and their member governments in the United Nations, the World Bank and the European Union. I've worked for Oxfam, which International, which has over 21 members, about 10,000 staff in over 90 countries, and also the Fair Trade Movement, which actually is a movement mainly based of small enterprises. I've been representing the Fair Trade Movement to the European Union and the World Trade Organization, and that's 1.9 million fair trade farmers and workers, 1,000 fair trade enterprises and over 1,000 fair trade shops. And I have been doing that by monitoring, scrutinizing and influencing the European Union's budget, how the World Bank spends its funds, and influence trade, climate change, agriculture and international development policies, always with that mind of supporting these small producers, especially and small enterprises, especially those that are focusing on alternative business models and inclusive business models. Some of the examples I have done is I've represented farmers in EU agricultural policies. I have been invited on the OECD Senior Advisory Group for blended finance, looking at how public finance and blended finance can be mixed to encourage private sector inputs into developing countries. I have looked at ethical and environmental criteria around public procurement, especially supporting small enterprises be able to input into public procurement tenders. And finally, I'm working at the moment currently in my own business as a consultant with the OECD, developing a toolkit for private sector to be able to engage with development cooperation, and that includes a very big part of a small medium enterprises. So I have very much a lot of information experience with working with small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Hilary. And Elaine, thank you and welcome. Good to have you with us. Let's have 2 minutes from your good self before we get into the discussions.
Okay, firstly, apologies for the delay. I seem to be having some real tech problems this morning, which is why I'm on my phone. I hope you can hear me all right. Hello, my name is Elaine Miller and I'm an independent candidate. I'm an advocate. I've worked in law and financial services for 35 years and have significant senior management and board level experience. For the last 7 years, I was the Viscount. Supporting business is a key part of my manifesto. We have to preserve the financial services industry, but the majority of our businesses are small businesses and we should do more to support them, including by reducing red tape. There are lots of businesses in this district and in a broad range of sectors. Businesses don't just contribute to the economy and provide jobs, they're essential to our quality of life. And we have to recognise that some in key sectors may need financial help to survive in the next few years. Housing is also a huge area of concern, which is having a big impact on business and has to be a priority for the next government. We need to look again at how we accommodate essential workers, whether they're seasonal or longer term, because the current permit system clearly doesn't work for everybody. Of course, local people are also facing problems with housing, adding to recruitment challenges. Any strategy on housing, however, must be underpinned by a clear strategy on population. We have to work out what we need to ensure future success for the island and plan for that. More widely, I'd like to see more transparency and more effective controls on government spending to ensure value for money, with clear responsibility and accountability for management of budgets, much as we see in the private sector. My previous roles have helped me develop skills that are essential for a states member. I can make sense of complex information, I can find solutions to problems, and I know how to make sensible and fair decisions. If you vote for me, you will get someone who's capable, who will get things done, and who will work hard to deliver positive and effective outcomes for the 3 parishes and for the island as a whole. I do hope that you will give me one of your votes. I won't let you down. Thank you. Sorry, Murray.
That's all right, not a problem. Thank you very much indeed. I inadvertently stopped my clock at the wrong time. So and my apologies. Thank you very much indeed all for your 2 minute or thereabouts round robin. Let's look at the areas that the Chamber membership have been tasking me with talking about. We've got staff shortages because of recruitment problems, a lack of affordable housing, and a population policy that makes it a challenge at best to keep talent on island and to make it difficult to attract those needed to help Jersey function properly at a business rate, all of which is causing an escalation in the cost of running a business. So what are we going to do about that? They're all linked into one another, but let's start off with recruitment and the difficulties of recruiting. And of course, the difficulties of recruiting do link to a population policy, Brexit, COVID. They also link to housing as well, and the lack of that. So let's just try and unpack that a little bit, because a lot of our members are extremely concerned that they can't function as a business right now. Change the order slightly. Hilary, I'm going to come to you first on this. Really difficult for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, even larger businesses at the moment. Just to be able to operate and to be able to get above the profit line, because they can't function 7 days a week or even 5 days a week in some cases. How do we solve this?
Thanks, Murray. Big question to start off with, and something that I've really been hearing absolutely concerns on the doorsteps as going around canvassing, but also with discussions with business owners. I mean, the number one thing everyone is saying is that it's obviously the cost of living, and that is meaning that it's really hard for staff really to be able to stay here, because they're feeling that they could go and get a better deal somewhere else. So I think really this links back to the cost of housing, both affordable for buying, but also for renting. And this really does need to be tackled as a first priority in the new government. So I think that would be number one. I think the other thing is, obviously we need to try to retain our local talent here in Jersey, and so we really do need to look at that education system and really see how we can update it to make it viable for the 21st century, but also looking forward into the future. So have a really good 20-year plan, 30-year plan on that education front, and what that looks like, both with education going forward in the younger generation, but also retraining and being able to retain those on the island and be able to retrain and go into other businesses and fill the gaps that we're looking at. So that does need to be looked at. But the third is something that obviously that cost of living is important, and so it is something that would be interesting to hear from your members a little bit more, that there is this push for a living wage and really talking about what that looks like, so that we have wages are kind of in step with also the cost of living, because that is really kind of a crunch issue where you have this, and something that's very complicated, where you have rising costs for everything. But if you have also wages that don't go up to that, then that's really difficult, and that's when you start seeing movement off the island.
Okay, Hilary, thank you very much indeed for your comprehensive answer there. Andy, let's just talk on this this subject of recruitment and being able to attract or retain staff. It's really difficult at the moment, and there are businesses that just are looking squarely down the barrels of being able to close because they just can't afford to keep operating at 60%, 70% because they can't get staff. How do we solve this problem? Is it a population migration issue? Is it a housing issue?
I think possibly it's mostly a housing issue, because the cost of housing is so great. For example, in the health system, we used to have Westerway Court, which provided some really cheap, or I think they just paid their electricity bills for our nurses and their doctors, young doctors, when they came over. So they were able to be here for a while, and there were lots of other properties that they could use at a really subsidized cost, and that really encouraged people to want to come. But now, if they got to pay the going rate, they just come over, they stay for a very short time, and then they've gone again. And I think that's probably happening in a lot of other parts of the island as well. And so I think we really need to address this as a case of urgency. I really do not understand why Westaway Court has remained empty since 2017. And it's something that could be done really quickly. And there are other properties, I'm sure at St Saviour's, there used to be homes where families could come and live with lovely sort of grass and lots of places to play. So that's one part of this. There are just so many facets of all of this, aren't there? I think we have to look after our young people and educate them properly, and our sort of spread them into the areas that we need. I mean, like there's a really good thing at Digital Jersey at the moment. And I was talking to a lovely young friend yesterday, and she's doing a 2-year course with them. And then that'll lead her to staying here and wanting to be in the island. So we have to play it really carefully, and we have to encourage our young people to stay, I think. So there are lots of, and you know, and then the farmers, it's costing a lot to bring people in. I better stop.
No, I'm trying to be as equitable as I can around the sort of 2-minute responses.
Thanks,
I can.
It's,
I know
it's really difficult.
We'll come back and talk more about housing, no doubt, and more on the economy,
Thank you.
and certainly maybe even living wage as well. So there's plenty to unpack in here. But in terms of recruitment, Elaine, we've already heard that we should maybe adjust our education system slightly in order to train better skills on island. But we need to get people right here, right now, and working. So we've got a problem that's damaging the economy right now. Are there any things that you can suggest that we need to do to solve that problem?
I think in the immediate term, we need to look at our system for bringing workers into the island. I mean, I think housing, clearly, that is an issue. We need to look at how we accommodate, particularly seasonal workers. And I think the permit systems, I know there's the 9-month seasonal permit, but that's really not working, because following Brexit, following COVID, we lost a lot of people, I believe, in the island due to because of those two factors. We need to find a way of attracting really people who are close by back into the island, because I think some of the businesses are having to look really quite far afield. We're looking now to places like the Philippines to bring workers in. And somebody from the Philippines isn't going to come all the way to Jersey for 9 months. They're looking for a year, 2 years. So we need to look at how we make it easier to bring people in to do some of the jobs that we can't fill locally, because this was a question that came up recently. How do we get local people doing the jobs that they don't want to do? So we need to look to sensible work permits, and we need to look for how we accommodate those people. And I think the reality is that if you're coming to Jersey on a short-term basis, the type of accommodation you want or need is not the same as the type of accommodation you would want if you're going to live here and bring up a family. So I think permits is one thing. We do need to find accommodation. I think this may be where, if we do have vacant office space, for example, in town, where we do have a big demand on hospitality workers, for example, that we could look to adjusting, remodeling office space into accommodation that is suitable for people who are here for the short term. Is that my time finished?
It is. Thank you very much indeed. We'll come back round, I promise you. We'll come round and do more. Kirsten, you've been at the heart of both sides, Economic Affairs Scrutiny Panel, and then Assistant Minister for Economic Development. So you've seen the challenge from both sides, and you'll be very well aware from the Chamber membership of the difficulties they've got in recruiting. Presumably there's some empathy coming in there.
Yeah, a huge amount of empathy. And the problem is that this isn't just a Jersey problem. This is a problem across the Western world. Certainly, after COVID, people have removed themselves from the workplace, and it's not just that Jersey has particular issues. The whole of the Western world is suffering a similar problem. But in Jersey, the cost of living, the cost of housing, and post-Brexit, Brexit doesn't help Jersey. Brexit isn't good for Jersey. Brexit has made it even harder to recruit here. I've got actual solid policies in my manifesto aimed at helping with the cost of living. So that's lifting tax thresholds so that people pay tax only when they earn more. That effectively puts money back in the pockets of islanders, and so that will help keep people here in the island. As far as short-term temporary workers are concerned, I've already been working with the farming industry to try and convince the Social Security Department to stop them having to pay Social Security contributions for workers who are only here for 9 months. For the first 6 months of those 9 months, they're unable to claim on Social Security, so they're effectively paying 6 months for absolutely nothing. And so Social Security obviously pushes back from that, but for me, it's something that we need to keep putting pressure on Social Security to do so. I think from the perspective of work permits, we have already in the construction sector extended work permits from 9 months to longer periods, because obviously when you bring people here with skills or who need to learn new skills, doing that in 9 months and then having to say goodbye doesn't work at all. So I think longer work permits, which keep them below residency thresholds, are really important, because that way people can learn any new skills and learn new ways of working, and they can then provide the value to businesses that businesses need. So for me, it's a big problem in the round. It deals with accommodation, it deals with the cost of living, but I am working and I do propose policies myself which address this.
Okay, Kirsten, thank you very much indeed. Pretty much on your 2 minutes there. Let's go to you, Gregory. Kirsten was talking there about changing tax slightly, changing Social Security slightly, changing the population policy slightly. And we've only just got a population policy coming in on 2 wheels at the last minute from this previous government. So it's taken some time, and it's actually a plan for a policy rather than a policy itself. So are there things that we can adjust and do better in the next 4 years?
Well, I can answer that question, but I also like to talk about the rest of the subject. The population policy is quite simple. We do want to stabilize population in Jersey. We do not, nobody in Jersey wants population to just keep growing. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a limited size island, and every time we have more people, our quality of life decreases. However, we know that it's not straightforward. That it's not something we cannot just close the borders and be happy with it. Businesses will collapse. Services will not be rendered. It's much more complicated than that. I'd like to talk about all the problems. The first one is indeed that there has been a reshuffling of jobs around the Western world, and almost all countries have exactly the same problem. They've sent a lot of money into homes during COVID, and people are using this money to actually stop working or change jobs or lead their lives slightly differently. And this is really disrupting the job market in almost every country. We're not different. The UK is not different. This is not going to last. This is only for a few more months, and then people will have to come back to the job market, probably in a different place or a different way. But this is going to be sorted by itself. Of course, we had Brexit, which completely changed our attitude to EU workers. You now need, if you come from the EU, you now need a work permit to come into Jersey. And even though you're very likely to get one, it's made it more difficult, and many people have just not bothered. So there's a massive source of workers that all of a sudden we don't have access to. There's very little we can do about that. That's all about belonging to the common travel area, and you cannot get out of those rules. The cost of living is extremely important. When we do attract people, for example, from the CTA, coming to Jersey, we usually pay them more, so that's quite attractive. Cost of living in general is not much higher. I think people perceive that it is, but the shops are the same, the prices are the same. The one thing that's massively different is housing. So that makes a big difference. In most countries, you go to the suburbs, and the further you go away, the cheaper it is. In Jersey, it isn't. We've launched a campaign of housing where we are building 5,000 homes. Our problem is going to make sure that the market doesn't collapse after that. Is that it? Is that 2 minutes? It's a wide subject.
It's a very big subject, and we've started it very gently, and we'll start chipping away around the sides of it. So 5,000 homes on the way. The people returning to work will solve itself. Mary, in terms of just recruiting people and getting people, you know, there are, I think there was something in the last week, 1,200 odd jobs and 700 people on the unemployment list. So even if everyone in that was in work, we still wouldn't have enough people to cover. So how are we going to attract people to keep our businesses upright? Or have we got too many businesses?
Well, have we got too many businesses? I think the problem here is a general lack of direction amongst us all. What I can see in the youngest people is this real instability, wondering what the future has ahead of them. Should they go into a training scheme? Should they go on to university? But most of all, there are extensive mental health problems amongst the young, which are not being catered for sufficiently in this island. So amongst this, let's say 16, 17, up to 20-year-olds, there is a great deal of instability. Now, how do we attract these people back into the workforce? I really don't know. I was talking to a scaffolder the other day, and he said, what is the future of Jersey? And I said, I don't think it looks too good. And his situation is that he gets people coming in and applying for jobs, but then with about 2 or 3 weeks later, they leave. His training schemes are very long. He says it takes him three years to train a scaffolder. How do you keep people when you actually do get them to pick up the jobs? This is another great worry, because what are we training people for at the moment? We are facing a future where automation and artificial intelligence are going to be there very, very soon. We are going to have robots available for us, both in the manufacturing and the service industries. This is going to cut right across everything we do, except perhaps the service industries such as retail, where I think it's a completely different problem. There you will need people on hand, but so many other, from medicine onwards, upwards, downwards, we are going to have robots. They're going to be robots in our homes. So what are the young people facing? I think we're looking rather short term at the moment, just trying to fill those daily jobs that we can't do ourselves. But I think we must look to the future. Digital Jersey, I think, is absolutely essential, but I don't think we're probably making the most of it, and we probably don't even know how.
Okay. That's a very honest answer. Thank you very much indeed, Mary, for that. Let's go back round again, but this time Lee has sent us a question, which says, work permits are a way that the island will allow businesses to find resources on a short and long-term forecast. Would this room support these workers being allowed, by allowing them access to health from day one? I think you were referring to that, Kirsten. So allowing those on work permits who come in to have access to healthcare from day one, and look at a tax rate for those who will come in for short-term contracts, 12 to 24 months, by giving them a tax rate will attract the right talent. So lower tax rate for people coming in, and healthcare from day one. What do we feel about? I think I know what you feel about that, Kirsten, because you actually mentioned something on that. Elaine, let me come to you first on that. How do you feel about this? Because for people who are coming in, they don't get healthcare for the first 6 months, even though they're paying in, and they're coming in straight away and paying a tax rate which is not really attracting people here when you offset the cost of the accommodation that they're going to be paying.
Yeah, I think for those, I think access to healthcare is something that seems to me to be, quite unfair. If you're taking social security from people and not allowing them healthcare, there's something inherently unfair about that. I believe that there have been discussions with the Minister of Health for seasonal workers in farming, which says if they come in, once they've done their 6 months, they can start to get healthcare, but if they come back the following year, they get healthcare right away. And I believe those discussions have taken place, but haven't yet been signed in because of various delays. So I think things like that certainly help. I think tax depends very much on who you are and what type of person you are. You know, if you're a doctor, a professional person, tax rates in Jersey are already possibly lower than you're paying in the UK, although as you say, there's the housing offset that has to come in. I think at the lower levels where people are struggling for accommodation, there is room to look at how tax and social security impact on those people. And I think we could also think about, you know, with the movement to which has been happening for incoming workers for some time, with movement to sort of ITIS being more effectively pay as you earn, how can we reduce our bureaucracy for employers and for those people? Because if all you're earning is a relatively short wage, if you don't have massive other income in the island, what is the point of even asking for tax returns from those people? So do we just take the ITIS that the employer collects and pays and leave the paperwork at that, effectively trust the employer to deduct taxes? So I think it's certainly something that needs looking at, and I don't have enough information to be definitive about it. But I think, and just going back to healthcare, I think that adds cost to business, because if you're bringing someone in who doesn't have healthcare, and if they're in an industry like farming or construction where they may sustain an injury, these businesses are infecting insurance to help pay for the cost of healthcare. So if we can get a solution to that, that also reduces cost to business and may help reduce some of the bureaucracy for business.
Okay.
So I think it's something we need to do.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Hilary, it does seem a little bit unfair that you don't get healthcare, but you're paying into a system. And if you're only on a 6-month contract, if you're only here for the season, you can deduct your social security and get no healthcare whatsoever. It does seem a little bit of a misnomer. You've worked in other parts of the world then. Is that right?
Thanks, Murray. So I totally think that is unfair, and we should, people paying in straight away should have access to healthcare. But we must remember that a lot of our healthcare we have to pay for up front ourselves. So going to the GP, we all have to pay costs for that. So actually giving access to healthcare is actually not such a massive area. I mean, it will be actually acute and A&E healthcare that will be the one that they would have access to. And and that, of course, will impact the business if their workers are having to access that kind of healthcare. So I think it would be really important for them to be able to do.
Okay, what about tax? Is there something we can do on tax?
For tax, I'm not sure that is the right way to go. I mean, we're hearing a lot in the hustings and at the doors of people feeling that the tax system in Jersey is unfair as it is. And I'd be worried that, and there is some discussions on that, of all the different complicated sections of the tax system. So to add that layer of people coming in, having something beneficial where long-term workers staying in Jersey does not benefit for them, especially locals who obviously are not moving in and out of Jersey. I think that would be difficult. But what it is that we could use other levers of government to help with those, because of course it's quite moving to another country has lots of related upfront related costs. I've done it several times. So, it does cost a lot to move countries, to work out the systems again, to set yourself up, even if it's for a short term time. So there can be, I think, other ways to help. For example, a lot of those workers will be in rented accommodation. So maybe there could be help with the deposit, for example. Or for traveling for actually to come to Jersey. So that kind of move. So there are other ways I think that could help that, lowering that upfront cost, then looking at changing the tax system.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten, you very much alluded to this before, so I'm fearful that you're going to repeat what you already said is in your manifesto. But in terms of tax, is there a way of attracting back talent that is from the island originally? We've got students going to university. They then sometimes come back, more often than anecdotal as it is, they come back when they're married and have children and want to settle down, rather than the first 2 or 3 years after university, when we really need that talent back on island. Is there a way of getting talent to the island using tax as a lever?
I don't think tax would be the lever to attract young graduates back to the island, but I think there are potentially other ways. For instance, we lose about 50% of our graduates. That's a massive brain drain from Jersey. If you think about brain drain, you don't tend to think of that with developing high-level economies. But Jersey, we have this massive brain drain where at least 50% of our graduates disappear. We operate a grant system, which is means tested, and I'm more than happy with that. That's absolutely fine. But we could look at tweaking it so that to incentivize people to come back, so that if they come back within 5 years, then they either receive some sort of bonus on top of their grant, or if they don't come back, they have to pay back some of that grant. So the grant becomes a partial loan as well. These are kind of carrot and stick ways of bringing graduates back to the island. I don't think tax is what will bring graduates back. They know Jersey's low tax compared to what they're paying in the UK or any other country. And as you said, people come back to have families, and that's very much focused on the quality of life. So it's the quality of life that Jersey offers which attracts people back to the island.
Okay, very, very, very quickly, because I remiss of me for twisting the question that came in to start with. What about work permits and the work permits to bring people in? That seems to be at the moment a short-term solution. We've been working in places like Antigua and Barbuda, the Philippines, in Kenya, Rwanda. There are contracted staff coming in from various parts of the world. Can we make their lot a little bit more attractive to bring more of them?
I mean, certainly, and we need to be creating these MOUs with various nations around the world. And also, I think the Antigua Barbuda one is a great example, because we can start sending our islanders there for 6 months to learn and come back to Jersey. They've got an excellent hospitality sector in Antigua and Barbuda. So it should be a two-way street. But the more we can enter into these agreements, I think it's really, it will only help us.
Okay, fine. Andy, going to come to you next. This is it's a difficult one to answer, but in terms of the question here, work permits, access to health, and a tax rate to attract talent, are all of those right, or are some of them right?
Some of them right. I think access to healthcare on day one we have to be quite careful about, because we don't want health tourism. And there is anecdotal evidence of people coming over so that they can receive our healthcare, and we all have to pay for it. So whether they come in with an insurance, it'd be better if they came in with insurance, or else when you go to Australia, you have to have really, really strict medicals before you enter. So we have to be quite mindful of that. As for decreasing the tax rate of those coming in, I think we have to be careful on that too, because you can disincentivize the locals. And for example, in the hospital, we got really long-term, wonderful frontline staff who are paid half what the locums coming in are paid. And so it seems inequitable, really. I think we should be paying, we should definitely be in the hospital with, there used to be, Jersey used to pay above the UK, and so there was that was a better incentive to coming in, I think, rather than decreasing the tax rate. And what was the other question we have to think about? I think mostly it's about housing, to be honest, and costs of housing. And with our young people who go off to uni, I think we should keep in touch with them. I think we should, businesses, we need a sort of good forum so that they are aware of what jobs are coming up and what's available. And that would be a better way of encouraging them back. But I think it's quite good sometimes to go away and see the world a bit before you come back, because then you're bringing more experience back to the island.
Let's hope that worldly knowledge comes back.
It's a really difficult question, but we have to attract our young people because we really need them on this island.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Gregory, thank you very much for that. Gregory, let's go to you and indeed your thoughts on this. We've got to attract our young people back. What's our carrot and stick for getting them back here then?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that directly. First, I don't often agree with Mary, but she's completely right on everything she said in this particular case. The problem with health is health tourism. So insurance, our social security already covers accidents and acute conditions. So if you come into the island, you've been here a week, and then you have an accident, you go to the hospital, that's covered. But if you come here for 6 months, and then it's found that you have a long-term condition or something that needs to be treated with tens of thousands of pounds of medicine, that's pretty unfair. You've paid £500 to Social Security for your whole stay, and then you cost us a couple of 100,000. So that's the sort of things that we have to be careful about. We have a future in science and technology. I hope that this will come back, because this is something that we can develop in the island. It's linked to real estate. So we still need to solve the housing problem. Housing needs to be cheaper, but also industrial real estate or light industrial real estate. We have very, very little space here to develop anything like that. And we need to look at that a little bit more carefully. Tax is not going to mean anything. We have one of the lowest taxes in Europe. Making it even lower is not going to attract more people. It's not going to make a difference. So definitely not in there. Sorry, your first question was how to attract people back. Yes. Basically, we do have a problem in that there are very few specific jobs available in the island, but that's a normal population problem. It's a joke in sciences that everybody that goes to university and wants to do biology wants to do marine sciences. And there's 10 jobs in the UK for marine sciences, but you've got 500, 1,000 kids coming out of university with that sort of degrees. You have to play to your market. And there are things that you can get to do in the UK where the jobs just don't exist in Jersey. So unfortunately, we'll lose some people, but we'll get some others back where we have the jobs in Jersey.
Thank you very much. Thank you for answering the questions we've got so far. But a question that's come in, that rather interesting question from Robert, that says, with the news, and this is more tourism based, with news of further issues of staff shortages, more hotels closing, the likes of the Pontac House, the Apollo, the Savoy this year alone, and of course in previous years other large hotels have gone as well, and airlines cancelling flights due to the lack of demand this summer. Jet2 from Manchester, EasyJet from Glasgow. What things, this is 3 things, what things would candidates do to reverse the decline in tourism and our tourism economy should they be elected? The tourism economy, of course, reaches far deeper than just those who sell hotel beds, but of course, those tourists coming in spend an awful lot of money in our economy. So the value of tourism and what you would do to stop that decline that we're starting to see, certainly from difficulties of recruitment, and also it appears some changes to bookings that are coming in. Kirsten, you've been very close to this for some time. I'm going to come to you first this time. What are we going to do to stop this decline?
Jersey's in a little bit of a bind with regard to the value of its property and the hotel sector, because anyone who owns a hotel can now look at that hotel and see it as potentially residential property, and obviously receive a very large capital payment, far in excess of the value probably as a hotel, and hence we're losing hotel beds. And this is one of the problems with an overheated property market. I think we need to be, what I don't subscribe to, and I was really pleased that in the island plan this didn't happen, was the idea of restricting hotels to having to remain in the industry, because that in turn makes it harder to invest in hotels. What I think we need to do is very much focus on making Jersey a very attractive destination for tourists to come here. We did see a strong rebound after COVID, so it is quite worrying that we're seeing flights being cancelled due to lack of demand. But I think that's probably a lot more to do with I apologise, a note just came up in the middle of there and it took my attention. I do apologise. Please don't send notes to each other when others are answering questions. We did see a demand. I think the reduction in demand isn't so much because of Jersey, but because of the cost of living problems that are happening around Britain particularly. So we have lost a lot of European tourists because of Brexit. It has made it harder. We can't have French people coming here with identity cards now. I think we need to pressure the UK government to allow us to change that. In fact, I think we need to stand up for ourselves much more strongly on areas like this and say, no, we need French people to be able to come here with identity cards because they're an important part as day trippers of our tourist economy. We also need to market a lot more in Europe. I think we've almost stopped our European marketing at the moment. I think we really should be looking there as well as looking to the UK to attract tourists here.
Okay, Kirsten, thank you very much indeed. Mary, I'm going to come to you, and I do apologise straight away. While I was doing my my round of answering questions, very remiss of me to have missed you out of there, and very right of you to remind me. So, Mary, let's take the first questions first, which were about having care from the moment of arrival for seasonal workers and anything else that will attract people back to this island, and then we'll come on to talk about the tourism side of it. So Mary, you now have the floor.
Oh, I've got two questions to answer in one. I think when you're moving to find work, the one thing that you don't really think about is the healthcare system, the other end. You just want the work and you want the salary and you want housing. Those are the most important things. When you set out to find a job in another country, there is absolutely no question that accommodation is the first thing you think about, and then the salary. You're not going to be thinking about having ill health because you never think about that until it actually happens. So I don't think that that would be a solution to getting people to come back. Housing, I think, is absolutely essential. I know my 3 children would love to come back to work in Jersey in one way or another. They're skilled workers, all of them, but they are not allowed back in and they would not find housing. So I think housing in one way or another has to be addressed. I don't know how, because there's the prices are astronomical. And there's a shortage of housing anyway, without thinking of the incoming workers. But that is crucial to attract people either back to the island or coming the first time round. Now, going to tourism, I have been absolutely fascinated in the last 3 weeks of how many tourists there are in the island and from how many different countries. Walking along the north coast, I have seen tourists from all over Europe here for 3 or 4 days. Again, yesterday, I was visiting the glass church where our next hustings are going to be. There were 3 tourists there. For 2 of them, it was their second time back, and for 1 of them, it was their first time. All of them absolutely thought the island was fantastic. The glass church was absolutely exceptional. But do you know what the problem for all of these tourists has been? And that is getting around the island. Public transport was the main thing for them. They had trouble with hotels trying to find accommodation, but it was more how to get around the island. Yesterday was exceptional, obviously, because it was a Sunday, but these people were stranded in St. Lawrence, wanted to get St. Brelards, and there was no way of them getting there. Equally, the walkers along the north coast have the difficulty. They set out from St. Helier, but they end up at, well, let's say the Devil's Hole, although the Devil's Hole has better public transport than most, but they end up, say, at Bonwy, and they can't get back, or they have to wait an hour or so to get back. And I think these are very important things for people coming to the island. The island, in a way, sells itself because it is so beautiful, but it is the services when they get here that are very important. The travel problem, I think, in a way, is a reflection of COVID more than anything else. It's going to be short term. I don't think it'll go on for more than about a year. The airlines will sort themselves out. But of course, at the moment, apart from the cancellations, there is the price of getting here. From wherever you want to, wherever you start off, there is the price of getting to Jersey. And I hope that in some way that we can help to sort this out a bit. But the services, once you get here, are absolutely vital. And at the moment, they're not good enough.
Okay, thank you for that, Mary. Thanks for answering both questions. Apologies for missing you out first time around. Gregory, in terms of our tourism industry. The tourism industry has been supported by the government, as we know, during the COVID period, but we are in a really important part of the year right now, and yet we have the lowest number of beds stock that I think we've ever had. That's a little bit alarming, because if we lose beds, then we lose routes, and if we lose routes, then it's going to cost us all an awful lot more to get on and off the island. So can we do something about that? Is that where the issue really lies?
Well, it's a conundrum, but I think we're actually going in the right direction. One of the issues with Jersey, and we have to recognize it and go that way, is that we cannot be cheap. We don't, you have to play with your advantages. And I don't see a billion population, billion population at subsistence level like you have in India or China. They can do cheap because they can always go to the fields and find somebody who makes $1 a day. Jersey has passed that since the 60s. It's completely over. So the only direction for us is luxury. For anything, if we want to do agriculture, if we want to have agriculture that survives on its own, it has to sell expensive products. If we want to have a hospitality that survives on its own, it has to sell a luxury product. I do agree, and I do understand that it's not a change that you can do by just snapping your fingers. And I expect that it will take 10 to 15 years for our industry to slowly turn in that direction. But that's the only thing that you can do with Jersey. And I also believe that the government should not intervene. The government should not try to force businesses one way or another. When they do that, it's usually very, very painful and expensive, and nobody gets anywhere. However, our job is to make the island as attractive as possible. So one of the things that the government can certainly encourage, and is encouraging right now, is events. We must make Jersey very attractive to the world, known to the world. And we've been doing that. We have had some success, and we must keep doing that.
Okay, so event-led tourism, and we've got to go up market if we're to survive. Hilary Jeune, tourism and the importance of tourism. If we lose tourism, we lose our roots. And I mean that by our air routes, which is quite a worry to everybody. I didn't mean hair roots in any way whatsoever. So let's go straight away to you, and let's talk about tourism. What would you do to save the tourism industry?
Thank you. I mean, first of all, I think we lose just more than our air routes and our connectivity to the outside world. I think also for us as locals, we benefit a lot from the tourism industry through restaurants, through the fact that lots of tourists buy lots of things in our retail shops as well. So actually there'll be a massive knock-on effect for our own facilities. And also, of course, we've got the heritage sites. You've got the zoo, you've got all the attractions that we have in Jersey. So there would be massive an impact for us as locals as well if we lose the tourism industry. So I think that's something important that we do need to look at. And something that we do have unique in Jersey is our identity. And so I think, there has been some work on really looking at how we can improve that kind of Jersey identity, how we can excel that more. And there was a good report that was written, and I think those kind of recommendations in that report really need to be put into action to really help kind of have that unique aspect. Because I'm not sure I completely agree with Gregory on saying that we should look at us from the luxury goods. I think we should look at ourselves because of our unique identity. And from there, we can then go on still on a wide variety, because looking just from a luxury goods, which means obviously just attracting people who can afford those kind of luxury products, means that we're losing out on those people who are coming for the sports, because not everybody, who comes to sporting events that we've seen really improve will be able to also afford luxury. I think I've also met a lot of people who have been walking and cycling in Jersey and being part of that environment, and actually also utilising the camping that we have here, which again doesn't necessarily mean we have that they are then spending from a luxury perspective. So I think we do need to make sure that we aren't just focusing in on one kind of consumer, but that we really still broaden out. But where we can really focus is really highlighting our identity and marketing that more effectively and efficiently into Europe as well. I think we need to get into Europe more, and also stand up to the UK and say, right, we need to be able to have easy access for European visitors to get here. And another one I thought was thinking that was really important and an interesting concept is within that identity of Jersey, focusing in on the sustainability and well-being. And that's something that then will cover a wide range of kind of consumers as well, with the walking, the cycling, ensuring we have good bus routes, having access to really good heritage sites, our heritage sites, and really ensuring that our all the attractions that we have now, and hopefully maybe in the future, some more are funded properly.
Sorry, thank you. Andy, the tourism industry.
Sorry, carry on, Mary.
No, please carry on.
No, I think it's really important for Jersey because it adds so much to the whole of our lives. You know, the restaurants, we've got more people coming in. It's a beautiful island and people love coming here. But I think it's quite sad that we have lost the Mayfair and the Apollo and various others. But I can understand why those hoteliers have sold, because they've made a whole lot more money by becoming resident, by selling up and for the local people having homes there. But I think we've got to do something. I think we probably need to promote self-catering accommodation. I think Les Ormes has done a great job. I think there's really good camping sites. I think we have got new hotels coming in like the Premier Inn. So perhaps, but we have to encourage, I don't think we should just be a luxury market. I mean, that's fine for some people, but we've also got to cater for families who'd like to come here. And I think we probably should, you know, there are lots of walkers, there are people coming and cyclists and people coming for sports events. I think the rugby was really popular when it came to do their training. And that's something that is going to help improve our tourist industry. And also we did have the triathlon, but I think sadly we haven't got that this year. Is that right? I think possibly then the government, or for some reason it's fallen out of their circuit. And that's a shame, because I think that was very popular as well. And I think we've got to promote all these things. It was sad, I think we lost the tennis, because we did used to have tennis at Les Ormes, and we've lost the tennis courts. So I think all these things, but we have to encourage people to come, but because we don't want to lose our tourist the flights. But also with France, it seems really hard that they can't come now with their identity cards they used to come on day returns, and we've lost that. And I think the previous government has let us down, because it's just gone with the UK and we haven't had a say. And I think we need to talk directly probably to France and to Europe, so that to attract those people to the island, because it's a great island. And I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Good. Thank you for that. Gregory, I might come back to you just to talk about that from our Home Affairs Minister and Border Control. You may have something to say on that, but let me just come back in just a second. Elaine Miller, let's talk tourism and the importance of tourism and how we, well, not save the tourism industry. I don't think it needs saving, but it certainly needs some help right now.
I think it certainly does need some help, and it goes back to the issues that we've talked about earlier about recruitment and accommodation and how we get those workers in. So, I mean, I think that has to be a big focus, because what we don't want is people coming to Jersey and just having a really poor experience, whether that's in the hotels, in the bar, in the restaurant, in any of the activities they're doing. So all of the businesses that support the tourism sector, we want them to be functioning as well as they possibly can be. Tourism, yes, I don't think there's any question about its importance in terms of what it contributes to the island, our own quality of life, our travel routes. And we have to remember it's really important to the business sector. You know, in the last 25 years in Jersey, I've regularly had professional business people, lawyers, accountants. They come to Jersey, they come for meetings, and when they're here, they want to have they don't want to stay in a grotty hotel. They want to stay someplace nice. They want to have a nice meal. They want to be entertaining their clients. So it's important for the business sector, and although business travel is reducing, it is coming back, and I think we need to keep that. We need to look at the conference market, how we can get conferences in Insolve, which is one of the biggest insolvency, it's an international association, has a Channel Islands conference, and it sells out every single year. It comes to Jersey every second year with Guernsey. So some of those helping the conference market do well. I think we do need to broaden our market sectors. I think the luxury market is a very important one for Jersey, and I think it's definitely one we should focus on. But we do need to look at all the other sectors as well. I think where people are willing to invest in the island, we need to be biting their hand off and making it as easy as possible. Someone told me that someone is about to invest something like £12 million building a hotel in Jersey along the lines of the Pig chain, which is very popular in the south of England. So we need to make sure that planning and all the government departments are working together to facilitate those developments and certainly not to put any obstacles in their way. I think we should also focus on what Jersey does well and what we can do well. So whether we sell ourselves on our natural environment, whether we can really focus on things like sustainable tourism, have a concerted push towards sustainable tourism and the green environment, our natural spaces, that the ability to be out of doors easily are all things that we could leverage well, I think.
Elaine, thank you very much indeed for that. Gregory, just very, very quickly, it sounds really good that we've got to stand up for ourselves and we've got to tell the British government that we're going to accept identity cards from France. Dead simple. Probably a little bit more complicated than that. You're going to tell me it is, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry about that. One of the problems with identity cards and passports is basically security. So the UK decided not to participate in Schengen because they thought that open borders would be dangerous. We are all recognizing, the whole of Europe is now recognizing that open borders are a real problem in security. And passports have now become a very, very secure document. They're biometrics, they have some information embedded in them. They're very difficult to copy, so they're a very good document. ID cards, unfortunately, differ by country. So a French ID card is a good product. It's something that's difficult to fake. But there are a few countries in Europe where they're basically a piece of paper that you could do with your own inkjet printer. And because we have to treat all Europeans the same way, we cannot say, oh, the French are fine and we'll just take their ID cards. Every time we look at Europe, we have to say the Europeans, and therefore, if some of the countries didn't have that level of security, it means that we cannot accept them. Sorry, okay, the whole of Europe.
Just 8 minutes left, so I'm going to go to some yes nos because they're always a bit of fun at the end of the hustings, just to have some yes nos. So the first yes no, which I know will be quite interesting, is you're standing in a constituency of deputies. We don't have senators anymore. If you had the power to bring senators back, would you bring them back if you were a candidate? Yes or no? Oh, Mary, let's start with you first on this. Mary, do you miss senators? Would you like us to have an island-wide mandate? Would you bring senators back? You're on mute, by the way, Mary, sorry.
I would like to have an island-wide mandate for deputies rather than bringing senators back again. I don't think we should go backwards. I think we should go forwards, and deputies should have an island-wide mandate. Constables, of course, are incredibly important and they should stay as they are. Excellent.
Kirsten Morell, senators, no senators? Would you like to have an island-wide mandate?
Yes, I'm very happy with senators. I think it would be good to have them back. I don't think the island-wide mandate is working very well in Guernsey. I think we need to look over there to see whether an all island-wide mandate for deputies is the way forward. I'm hearing that local issues are not being picked up. So that's where the island-wide mandate falls down across the, when it's 100% island-wide mandate. So bring back senators.
Right, fine. Andy, bring back senators, stay at deputies?
Yeah, definitely bring back senators, and virtually everyone I've spoken to does not want this new system. And if I got elected, I'd want to try to go back to what we'd had. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Hilary, senators or no senators?
I think everyone's very unhappy with the current system. I potentially could bring back senators, but obviously looking at why they were taken away in the first place. But the one thing that people are really upset about was that they didn't get a voice with this. So whatever the decision in the future, it needs to have a referendum, and we need to take whatever the potential structure was going to be in the future to the island and have a referendum.
Oh, see, you've added extra spice of a referendum now to senators. That's even better. Elaine, senators, no senators, referendum?
I think a referendum would be a good idea because it would give people a feeling of ownership over the decision, which they don't feel they've had at the moment. I do think we need an island-wide mandate. I don't feel strongly about the title. I think senator sounds better than deputy, to be honest. But I think we do need to reflect somehow that there is electoral inequality. We do have to understand the rationale behind these changes in terms of trying to make it a more even playing field. And it may be that we do that by retaining constables and going to a constable and going to a wider island-wide mandate more widely. But I think the democratic issues, they are real, and we do need to work out how to solve them as well as bringing an island mandate.
Okay, fine. It was a yes or no, but I know we've gone a bit longer. Gregory, senators or not senators, you fought very hard to keep senators.
Absolutely, yes. And I was one of the few. There were only 16 of us who voted against the electoral reform, which not everybody knows. So yes, I'd come back to our system immediately. There are some tweaks that we can make to even out statistics, but the system was actually very, very sound.
Fine. 6 candidates here and 5 minutes left. So this is definitely a yes or no. Would you, in order to help with the cost of living, would you, yes or no, remove GST from food? Yes or no? Cost of living. We'll start. Andy, rang in the centre. Yes or no?
Yes.
You would. Excellent. Okay. Hilary, yes or no?
Not all food. So yes to some food,
yes.
Not to all.
Yeah. Sorry, can I come back to say basic food stuff? I take
basic foods. Would you remove GST from basic foods, Kirsten Morell?
Implement my tax threshold rises. That's more important, and then review the cost of the GST on food, because there are huge cost implications for the collection of it. But I'm very open to that review.
Okay, review. So yes, no, or review. We've added a third category in here, Elaine.
I think it needs review. I think if you're going to remove it from food, you have to remove it from everything, because if you start with differential rates of tax, you end up with businesses having a whole new world of pain in terms of the bureaucracy, how they manage it, how they categorise the food, how they then account for foods with different tax rates, all of which add cost, which will probably mean that foods become more expensive rather than less expensive because of the impact on business by the time they get new technology, new software, and the whole accounting bureaucracy that would entail. So I think it's either a yes to everything or a no to everything, but I think review is always sensible at times like this.
Okay, Mary, you're on mute there, by the way. Yeah. We all do it. You're still on mute.
One word answer is yes. There's an emergency, yes.
Thank you. Gregory, in terms of GST, remove it or not removing on food?
Not removing. GST is a sales tax. It's low, and it only works if you apply the same to everything according to the outlet, not according to the product. If we want to change it for VAT and have a 20% VAT on some things and 0 VAT on other things, why not? It's a different tax. It's not the same tax.
You just said 20% of VAT. That's put a shiver down the spine of just about everyone that we finish with. Should
so that's how it works.
should you be elected, and should you be going for the induction that inevitably happens to new states members, I urge you to listen to the late Conotave of St Clement's, Len Norman's debate on Jaffa cakes, which was quite fun. So that concludes this husting with just a minute or so spare. Thank you very much indeed to all of our candidates who are before us today. It should be noted that 2 alliance candidates, obviously because we had an alliance candidate in Gregory Guida, couldn't attend today. One is John Lafondre and the other is Hugh Raymond. They're the other 2 candidates. 4 of you will be elected. On behalf of the Jersey Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your time today. I know it's an extremely busy time for all of you. We look forward to working with the elected politicians as they move forward, and we wish you all the very best of luck. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.